Guys, welcome to your lesson on 7.7, 7.8, and we're going to be going over several more theories of personality, starting with humanistic. So, starting off, how did humanistic psychologists view personality? So, we're going to review some of the theorists from the last couple of lessons in this lesson as well. The two pioneering theorists that we've already talked about are Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers, and they offered a third force perspective that emphasized human potential, in contrast to Sigmund Freud's emphasis on disorders born out of dark conflicts. These humanistic theories emphasize the way people strive for self-determination and self-realization. In contrast to behaviorism's scientific objectivity, humanists studied people through their own self-reported experiences and feelings. So let's do a review of Maslow's beliefs. Any theory of motivation that is worthy of attention must deal with the highest capacities of the healthy and strong person, as well as the defensive maneuvers of crippled spirits. Hierarchy of needs. So we're going to review Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it begins at the base with physiological needs that must first be satisfied. So examples like need to satisfy hunger and thirst, before higher level safety needs, and then psychological needs are addressed. So we start at the bottom with our basic physiological needs, moving up to safety needs, then up belongingness and love, esteem, self-actualization needs, and finally self-transcendence. Try it. I am going to, I want you to pause it for right now, and I'm going to be back in a minute. And you can test yourself to see if you understand Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and as a nice review from last lesson. So what's the progression of needs on the hierarchy? So if our physiological needs are met, we become concerned with personal safety. Again, if we achieve a sense of security, we then seek to love, be loved, and love ourselves. With our love needs satisfied, we seek self-esteem. Having achieved self-esteem, we ultimately seek self-actualization, which is the process of fulfilling our potential, and self-transcendence, meaning purpose and identity beyond the self. Again, try it, applying what you've learned. Explain how Maslow's hierarchy relates to the humanist personality theory. How might the personality of someone focused on physiology needs differ from one focused on self-actualization, for example? Pause it, think about it. How did Carl Rogers view personality development? Fellow humanistic psychologist Carl Rogers agreed with much of Maslow's thinking. Rogers' person-centered perspective held that people are basically good and are endowed with self-actualizing tendencies. Particularly in a growth-promoting social climate, people are free to pursue their needs. What does a growth-promoting social climate consist of? Well, acceptance, genuineness, and empathy. When people are accepting, they offer an unconditional positive regard, an attitude of grace that values us, even knowing our failings. When people are genuine, they are open with their feelings, drop their facades, and are transparent and self-disclosing. When people are empathetic, they share and mirror others' feelings and reflect their meanings. What is unconditional positive regard? A caring, accepting, non-judgmental attitude which Carl Rogers believed would help people develop self-awareness and self-acceptance. This is a father not offering unconditional positive regard. Just remember, son, it doesn't matter whether you win or lose unless you want daddy's love. Think about it. Have you had someone in your life who accepted you unconditionally? Do you think this person helped you to know yourself better and to develop a better image of yourself? It says talk about it with a classmate, but think about it and think about how it made you feel. What is self-concept? So all our thoughts and feelings about ourselves in answer to the question, who am I? For Rogers and Maslow, a central feature of personality is one self-concept. If our self-concept is positive, we tend to act and perceive the world positively. If it is negative, if in our own eyes we fall far short of our ideal self, said Rogers, then we feel dissatisfied and unhappy. How did humanistic psychologists assess a person's sense of self? Humanistic psychologists sometimes assess personality by asking people to fill out questionnaires that would evaluate their self-concept. One questionnaire inspired by Carl Rogers asked people to describe themselves both as they would ideally like to be and as they actually are. When the ideal and the actual self are nearly alike, said Rogers, the self concept is positive. How have humanistic theories influenced psychology? Maslow's and Rogers' ideas have influenced counseling, education, child raising, and management. The humanists laid the groundwork for today's scientific positive psychology subfield and helped renewed interest in the concept of the self. What criticisms have humanists faced? First, said the critics, its concepts are vague and subjective. Consider Maslow's description of self-actualizing people as open, spontaneous, loving, self-accepting, and productive. Is this a scientific description, or is it merely a description of the theorist's own values and ideals? What's another criticism of humanist theories? Critics also objected to the idea that, as Roger puts it, the only question which matters is, am I living in a way which is deeply satisfying to me and which truly expresses me? This emphasis on individualism, trusting and acting on one's feelings, being true to oneself, fulfilling oneself, could lead to self-indulgence, selfishness, and an erosion of moral restraint. A final accusation leveled against humanistic psychology is that it is naive, that it fails to appreciate the reality of our human capacity for evil. Faced with climate change, overpopulation, terrorism, and the spread of nuclear weapons, we may become apathetic because we either believe everything will just work out or everything is hopeless. Humanistic psychology, say the critics, encourages the needed hope but not the equally necessary realism. What is the social cognitive perspective? So this views behavior as influenced by the interaction between people's traits, including their thinking and their social context. Much as nature and nurture always work together, so do individuals and their situations. What is the behavioral approach? This focuses on the effects of learning on our personality development. We are conditioned to repeat certain behaviors, and we learn by observing and imitating others. For example, a child with a very controlling parent may learn to follow orders rather than think independently and may exhibit a more timid personality. How do the two approaches relate? Social cognitive theorists do consider the behavioral perspective, believing that we learn many of our behaviors either through conditioning or by observing and imitating others. They also emphasize the importance of mental processes. What we think about a situation affects our resulting behavior. Instead of focusing solely on how our environment controls us, as behaviorists do, social cognitive theorists focus on how we and our environment interact. What is reciprocal determinism? The interacting influences of behavior, internal cognition, and environment. So we have interpersonal factors such as thoughts and feelings about risky activities. We have the behavior, which is learning to rock climb, and we have the environmental factors, which are rock climbing friends. How does reciprocal determinism explain personality development? So Albert Bandura proposes that our personalities are shaped by the interaction of our personal traits, including our thoughts and feelings, our environment, and our behaviors. What are 3 specific ways in which individuals and environments interact? Different people choose different environments. The reading you do, the shoes you watch, the music you listen to. Our personalities shape how we interpret and react. If we perceive the world as threatening, we watch for threats and prepare to defend ourselves. Our personalities create situations to which we react. How we view and treat people influences how they then treat us. So back to this biopsychosocial approach that we've seen in many other lessons. So we have the biological, the psychological, and the social cultural influences. As with other psychological phenomena, personality is fruitfully studied at multiple levels. What is the gene-environment interaction? So in addition to the interaction of internal personal factors, the environment and our behaviors, we also experience gene-environment interaction. Our genetically influenced traits evoke certain responses from others, which may nudge us in one direction or another. In one study, those with the interacting factors of having 1, a specific gene associated with aggression, plus 2, being raised in a difficult environment, were more likely to determine adult antisocial behavior. What are the influences on personality? Again, in such ways, we are both the products and the architects of our environments. Behavior emerges from the interplay of external and internal influences. Boiling water turns an egg hard and a potato soft. A threatening environment turns one person into a hero, another into a scoundrel. Why are assessment centers the best predictor of personality and behavior? Assessment centers, where simulations are created to test people's responses to stress, crisis, etc., exploit the principle that the best means of predicting behavior is neither a personality test nor an interviewer's intuition. Rather, the best predictor of future behavior is the person's past behavior patterns in similar situations. What criticisms have social cognitive theorists faced? So, critics charge that social cognitive theories focus so much on the situation that they fail to appreciate the person's inner traits. Where is the person in this view of personality, ask the dissenters, and where are human emotions? Social cognitive theorists have also been faulted for underemphasizing the importance of unconscious motives, emotions, and biologically influenced traits.